Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Well, that was nerve-wracking, guys. That was a tough one. I mean, it could have been tougher. We could have lost. The Yankees looked dead for most of that game. That was a weird game. I thought for sure that this was going to be a rant session. Up until about the 8th inning, the Yankees were dead in the water. The lineup wasn't doing anything off of Nathan Eovaldi. But that's not a death rattle. That's a gasp for air. Yankees win this one, and now tomorrow the series split is in play. Today's game was a matchup between two pitchers who've had Tommy John surgery. I can't think of that ever happening before when I've been watching. Anyway, Sox jumped up early. They got one in the first on a triple and an error. First batter of the game. And then one more in the second. Eovaldi was very sharp. He was cutting through the Yankees like butter early on. Florial showed off his speed in the third with an infield single. Dove into first base. That always worries me because guys can like injure a hand or a thumb. But he's super fast. Super fast. They need to give him a lower number. 90 is too high a number for these young guys. He's probably going to be around for a while. Brantley picked up a base hit to put the tying runs on base for DJ LeMahieu with nobody out. But you guessed it. Yankees don't score. They leave the men in scoring position once again. Devers tacked on a sac fly in the bottom of the third. His 80th ribby of the year. That's unbelievable. And then that made it 3-0 Red Sox. DJ hit a double in the sixth, but of course he was stranded as well. There wasn't a whole lot of positive to talk about early in the game. Believe me, I'd love to be telling a different story. Jameson Taillon was okay, I guess. He went 7 innings, gave up 3 runs, 1 earned. He's been much better since that pounding from Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago. His ERA, I think, is down to about 4.36. So that's respectable for a guy who hasn't pitched much over the last couple of years coming to the AL East. Estevan Florial picked up an opposite field double in the 8th inning off of Eovaldi. Nice piece of hitting. I guess I can say I'm looking forward to seeing, what this kid can do over the next couple of months. He scores on a single by Gardner, and the Yankees finally dent home plate. But to me, it's just exciting to see this kid. He's hitting .294. He's got a couple of extra base hits. He's hit a home run already. He's hustling. Now, he plays a good center field. He's a little bit too aggressive. We saw him run into Allen later on in the game. But overall, he's looked pretty good out there. Stanton bloops a ground rule double to put 2 men on, second and third with 2 outs. And then Odor hit a double off the monster to tie the game at 3. And then Gleyber Torres didn't hit the crap out of it, but he hit a little bloop single to give the Yankees a 4-3 lead. That's all they needed. Loaizaga came in for the 8th. He put 2 men on with 2 outs. Then J.D. Martinez hits that fly ball to right field, and Estevan Florial and Greg Allen kind of converge. It looked like Allen couldn't take his eyes off the ball. At least that's what O'Neill said. So he really couldn't look and see where Florial was. And Florial was tracking the ball as well and running really hard. And, I mean, luckily they didn't get hurt, but it was not a pretty situation. Brantley got doubled off of first base to end the top of the 9th. And another out on the bases. And that's getting a little bit old at this point. But I do kind of have a solution for that type of mental error. Back in the 90s when Willie Randolph was coaching third base, one of the rules that the players had was when they would reach first base, they would always look at the third baseman and say how many outs there were. So you'd see Bernie Williams hit a 1-out double, and first thing he would do is look at the third baseman and say, or third base coach and say 1. Or if it was 2 outs, 2-out single, he would look at the first base coach or third base coach and say 2. That's just a way of communicating, that how many outs there are. Keep your head in the game. But no excuse to get doubled off there. Chapman comes in to pitch the 9th, allows a walk and a bloop double to put men on second and third with 2 outs, but he gets out of it with a slider. Ball game over.
Ball game over. Yankees win. The Yankees win.
Steven Gutierrez says, "Don't be fooled, fellas. This team still needs to sell." Thank you for the dono, Steven. Well, I mean, I'm still in favor of selling. That's where I would go. You're still hearing other names thrown out there. Trevor Story is of interest to Yankees fans. Joey Gallo has been struggling, but he is still of interest to Yankees fans. If the Yankees win tomorrow and manage a split, then it's really going to come down to, what happens in Tampa Bay before the trade deadline. So, Tampa Bay struck early. They got Nelson Cruz. That's going to help them. He kills the Yankees. He kills everybody. And with the Yankees pitching a little thin right now, I can see that being a problem. The way the Yankees play in Tampa Bay can be a problem. So if I'm the Yankees, I'm trying to get somebody tonight, or at the very least, Monday before that series begins. So who do we have for the belt? Odor had the big double. He was already the previous belt holder. We also had a great start by Jameson Taillon. I'm seeing a lot of votes for Jameson Taillon. Got Taillon, Rally Rod. I don't know who that is. It looks like Jameson Taillon is our belt winner for today, so we're going to go ahead and make that change. Sorry, Odor, you had a nice game, but we have a new belt holder, and his name is Jameson Taillon. James Lehey says, I love Florial's hustle and speed. It's good to see youth, and, he's 23, so he's not super young, but in terms of baseball experience, he's pretty young. He's still a rookie, and just seeing him bring that energy of he's excited to be in the big leagues was, super, it adds a different element to this team. But let's not be fooled. This team almost lost this game. If it wasn't for that 4-run inning on bloops, this team would have lost. So let's just reflect on this was an opportunity that we gained. We lost one 2 nights ago. Yankees got to steal a couple more wins over the next few days to stay in this thing. They're 8 games back in the division. I haven't seen what the latest of the wild card in, but they were 4.5 this morning. But it's still not looking good. It's still not looking good. They need to do something over the next couple of days. A lot of talk about Max Scherzer. Jorge Gaza says Max would be perfect in pinstripes. So a couple of things about Max Scherzer. The Nationals are asking for the moon. They're probably asking for Anthony Volpe, who's just tearing it up for High Hudson Valley, hitting .359. He's got a OPS over 1,000 so far this year, just 20 years old. He's a good defensive player too, good offense. He's finding power. He's a regular-sized human being with a normal strike zone. He hustles. Everything you hear about this kid is that he's a great kid. And the Yankees don't want to give him up, especially when the piece that you get might not be a difference maker. But Max Scherzer could be a difference maker. However, Max Scherzer had a little bit of elbow discomfort today, and last I heard, he is not going to make his next start. So we've seen that happen before, though. Sometimes if a guy is close to being traded, teams will say that they have some discomfort. They'll put a story out there just to not lead anyone to believe that there's a trade happening, and then you see the guy ultimately get moved, and it's like, well, that was just a cover story. We see that a lot. Looks like we got Pat in the chat. Rally Rod needs the belt. I don't even know what is Rally Rod. Let's see. Steven Blurry says, forget the division. They are in wild card mode. Yeah, I'm thinking that they have a shot at the wild card. And Michael K had a really good point. I think I'd brought it up too, is that if you get to a wild card game, a 1-game play-in, Garrett Cole gives you an advantage over pretty much every team that you'd be facing. But my concern is what happens next. And that's why Max Scherzer could be a decent idea if you don't have to give up too much for him. But, I'd be hesitant to give up Anthony Volpe. But if that's what it takes, that might have to be what it takes. Anthony Volpe and Jason Dominguez are pretty much my 2 top untouchables at this point. Super chat, big super chat from Kyle Zelenitz. Thank you so much. Says this team needs to sell before the deadline. I agree with you, NYY Recap. The reason I say that we should sell is because I don't want to trade the prospects and still end up losing in the first round. To me, the offense isn't good enough this year. The offense just flat out isn't good enough. Unless you can get long-term control over a really good hitter who hits from the left side of the plate. That's one of the reasons I was advocating for Ketel Marte earlier in the year. But it didn't work out. He's had a few too many injuries. The Diamondbacks don't want to move him. So I just don't see that happening. Pappy Sapote says, forget the wild card. The way this team is managed, they're not making it far. I got to say, yeah, I don't see a manager of the year contention in Aaron Boone's future this year. Steph Blurry says he wouldn't trade anyone. Interesting. You know, if you're not going to win, you really have to evaluate where you're at this week. I mean, the deadline, I think, is Thursday or Friday. It's the 30th. You have to know over the next couple of days whether or not you have what it takes to win. Because if you don't, then there's no point in holding on to guys down the stretch. Drop some money. Drop some weight. You know, I think the Yankees could probably get something for Aroldis Chapman. I think the Yankees could probably get something for Luke Voit. But I don't know if they're in that mode yet. Yankees fans, I think, would revolt if the Yankees sold, even though it's probably the smart decision baseball-wise. I think if Theo Epstein was the GM right now, he'd probably sell. AB says, can you put Ottavino up for the belt for like 10 seconds? I don't have an Adam Ottavino headshot. He plays for Boston. Reset the man says, I wouldn't trade for Joey Gallo. I want a guy like Allen. Good thing for you, Reset man. We already have a guy just like Allen. In fact, we already have Allen. Let's see here. Felipe wants to talk about Stanton's K. Well, he did get a big hit, so I'm not going to eat him up for the K too much. The entire offense was bad for the first 7 innings. It was pretty bad. Army Joe 98 says, hard to sell with a team full of overpaid DHs. First of all, don't know hype. There are a lot of DHs on this team. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, Stanton is clearly a DH. He's supposed to play the outfield tomorrow. We'll see how that works. You know, Judge isn't a DH. At this point, I'd say that, you know, the Yankees have, at worst, 3 DHs on this team. Luke Voigt's probably better off as a DH because he's a little bit injury prone. I want him off his feet. Stanton is probably a DH at this point. And I think Gary Sanchez is a future DH, even though he's doing a nice job behind the plate today. But other than that, I mean, you could move if you wanted to Urshela. I don't think the Yankees want to. But they do have Oswald Peraza. They do have Anthony Volpe on the horizon. You might be able to get something for Urshela. Let's see here. We got another Dono coming in here. It looks like I just got the alert, but I haven't seen it pop up on the screen yet, so I'll put it up when it does. Fritz Walter says, hello, everybody. Hello, Fritz. How are you?
Hello there.
Kano Live says, Andujar a DH. Yeah, Andujar's also a DH. Although I will say this for Andujar, he did look serviceable in left field. I think he's somebody I would be comfortable playing in the outfield because I think he'll be better. Lori C says, I predict a clown show with Stanton in the outfield. Let's get the clown horn. So one thing about Stanton playing the outfield is that he hasn't done it in a while. So we're not just worried about him staying healthy. We're worried about him making the plays. I'm not sure he's going to be able to make the plays. Jameson Witt says, I think we go Andujar and Frazier for Story. There's no way that gets it done. There's no way that they would accept that. They're going to want a top prospect. Devin Adams says, should the Yankees move Torres or Luke in a deal for Story? Luke I can see because he would mash in Colorado and you'd have to clear up some space. But I don't want to trade Torres yet. I know his power's down, but we've seen he hit 5 home runs in spring training. So, you know, physically it's there. There's something wrong with his swing, which I think can be fixed. Super Dupa Snippa Gang says, what would you do about Judge in free agency? Don't know height. I haven't decided yet. That's one of those things that's like cross that bridge when you get there. It might be one of those situations where you just have to negotiate and try and find a good deal for both sides. You know, but I could see another Robinson Cano type situation where a franchise icon signs elsewhere. You know, Robinson Cano was starring in commercials and he was a big deal in New York when he left. Lamar says Florial's defense is shaky, but he's still young. So on Florial's defense, I don't think he's bad at defense. He had one issue today where he misplayed a ball off of the Fenway Park wall, but it was his first time playing in Fenway First time in that situation. So I'll cut him some slack there. That's a tough outfield. The other one was where he almost collided with Greg Allen, but that was a thing where he was just too fast for his own good, being too aggressive. Hey, I'm just not going to eat the kid's lunch. I think he's got a good arm. He's got speed. We saw him make a nice shoestring catch the other night. I like what he's doing. He's 23, so he's aging higher than you would want a prospect. But if you look at it, he lost an entire year of development last year, right? So you have to think of him as a guy who was, and he was injured for a couple years. He's got low mileage in terms of baseball experience. So he's a little bit raw, but he's got all the physical tools. Benjamin Tharp says, Cano is part of the best infield ever. I mean, if you just look at the names, yeah, A-Rod at third, Jeter at short, Cano at second, Teixeira at first, and then Jorge Posada behind the dish. Yeah, that's a really good infield, but if you really go into it, Jeter wasn't a great defensive shortstop at that point in his career. He would make the plays if it was hit to him, but he didn't have a lot of range. He had a really good offensive year that year. A-Rod was decent at third base at that point in his career, but he was starting to have hip injuries. You might remember that he missed the first month of the season with a hip injury. And, he just wasn't the same at that point of his career defensively. Now, Cano and Teixeira were awesome defensively, and the whole infield had a great year offensively. So it was a very good offense. Lamar says 2 hits for Florial today. That's what we want. Yeah, I mean, he's up to 294. It's been, a small sample size, but I'm enjoying watching this kid. Also, I want to give a shout out to Nathan Eovaldi. I know that he's on the opposition and he's shut down the Yankees a number of times over the last few years, but I really like the kid. I've liked Nathan Eovaldi. He's a really good guy. He always played hard for the Yankees. He's fought his way back from 2 elbow surgeries, just like Jameson Taillon. He's taught himself how to pitch. He's really improved. I remember when he first got to the Yankees, he had all this velocity, but he hit so many bats because he was just trying to pump it by everybody. He didn't have much else. Yankees taught him a splitter, and then he was starting to throw a cutter, and he had the second elbow injury. And then after he leaves the Yankees as a free agent, when he's injured, he signs with Tampa Bay, eventually gets traded to the Red Sox. But he's always been somebody I've enjoyed watching. He's a good guy, and he did a really nice job today. 7 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 2 runs, no walks, 8 strikeouts. So nice job for Nathan Eovaldi. Let's give him a round of applause. Can we get a hashtag Nasty Nate? Can we get a hashtag for Nasty Nate? Because this man, I get he's a Red Sox, but the man is impressive. He's a really good pitcher, and I miss him. Let's see here. El Fuego says, Taillon's been feeling it, guys. Yeah, Jameson Taillon has he's gotten better since that series against the Philadelphia Phillies where he got pummeled. I think he got knocked out in the first inning. It seems like after that, he's mixing his pitches a little bit more. He's I don't know, he's just been solid. He's been solid. He looked good today. He's going deeper into the game too. By the way, I just banned whatever his name was, Bobby Duff. Don't be a douche in the chat. If you pick on my regulars, I will throw your ass out. He's out of here. Nick Rossi says, "Why would they sell?" Well, it's a matter of evaluating your roster. You know, if you feel like you can get prospects or get depth or get pieces that you could use next year, if you don't feel like you're going to win this year, you might as well unload some salary for next year so that you can bring in some other guys and get some prospects and some depth that can help you out. That's the main reason. Justin King, Nasty Nate, Amen says, Eovaldi, Nasty Nate from Chavez. Yeah, really impressive game from Nate Eovaldi. Kano Live says, Cole, Severino, Kluber, Montgomery, Taillon, and Cortez. Possibly just think about that. So, I mean, going into the playoffs, yeah, that could be good, but you've got a long way to go to get there. None of those guys can hit. And the Yankees, even though they scored more runs than the Red Sox today. Offense has still been their issue most of the season. The hitting with runners in scoring position has been a huge issue all year. Hayden says, do you think Clint Frazier will be on the trade block? I think the Yankees wouldn't hesitate to trade Clint Frazier, but I don't think anybody wants him at this point. Armando Gomez says, I'd rather watch prospects the rest of the way. Nothing on the trade market will make this team a winner. I agree with you. I would like to see Esteban Florial get 2 months of experience here. 2 months of experience where it's kind of a pennant race. Like, if you play well, you can get into the playoffs. That's like a nice stepping stone into the major leagues. I'd like to see it. Allen, I wouldn't say he's a prospect. I'd like to see the Yankees get another outfielder. I'd like to see that. I wouldn't mind seeing the Yankees get another relief pitcher too, because the relief pitching has been kind of thin. And I kind of agree with a few other people who've said that Luis Severino might be a good fit for the bullpen when he comes back. Lori C says, where is Clint? That's a good question. Last I heard, he was having vision problems and undergoing tests. So that can't be good. Jameson says, I heard Kluber is coming back soon. Do you know how soon? You know as much as I do on this one. The Yankees have said that he may be back in September. So probably about a month. Kluber said before the game to Brian Hoke, I think, that he's confident he'll make another start as a Yankee this year. A-Man says, NYY is next to last in hitting with men on base. Yeah. I don't understand why that is. I think it's the whole philosophy of, if you get men on base, try and hit a 2-run or 3-run home run. And it's really hard to hit a home run when you're trying to do it. I like what the Red Sox do, which is they get players who are bat-to-ball contact skill guys first. Like they're talking about Verdugo and Duran and Devers. These are guys who make contact, and they develop them into power hitters. If you have guys on the squad that have power, they're going to run into hangers and things like that. But you really should lead with guys that are good hitters first, rather than taking guys who have a lot of power and trying to make them good hitters. Because I don't think it goes in that direction very often. You don't see a lot of guys come up as Dave Kingman and go out as Tony Gwynn. But you see some guys come up as guys who will hit, 280, 300, and then they add power later on in their career. We got a super chat from Micah. Appreciate that. Do you think the way Boone sets his batting order causes the problems with runners in scoring position, Gardner second, third sometimes? It can't help. I don't think that Boone necessarily sets the order. I think that Boone gets the order from the analytics guys and fills out the lineup card. The order goes through a computer. The computer looks at matchups and percentages for that day and who should do what against certain pitchers who throw the ball in certain areas and yada, 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 yada. But as I've been saying, the game is played on the field, not on paper. Hey, look who we got in the chat. He says he posts all the time. I never see it. Tom Askew. This is my buddy Tom. Let's get a round of applause for Tom. Hashtag Tommy. What are we? Hashtag Tommy Gunn. There we go. He says, good to see Chapman get through a pressure inning like that. Yeah, Chapman, he scares me. He terrifies me. And that's why I've never trusted him in the playoffs. He's a guy who has never had great command of the baseball, except for the first 2 months of this year when he was obviously putting every kind of sticky shit you can have on the baseball. And now that he's got this fingernail issue, it's taken away that splitter from him. So he doesn't get that, that third strikeout pitch. Here we go. Tommy Gunn. Whoops. Hey, yo, Tommy Gunn. Hey, you knock him down. Now, why don't you try knocking me down now? Tommy Gunn. Shout out, Tom. So anyway, Fletcher Warren says, what about Charlie Blackmon? He's a lefty and you won't have to give up as much. He's somebody that I've been talking about with a few friends of mine. He's somebody that I would ask about if I was Brian Cashman. If he can play left field. I'm not sure that he has the range to play left field in Yankee Stadium. I haven't seen him play defense in a while, and left field at Yankee Stadium is tough. Although, in Colorado, big outfield. Very big outfield. Hey, we got a super chat from Lamar. I don't like how Hoy Park didn't get a chance, but moving on, I wish him the best. First of all, Lamar with the dono.
Lamar is all caps, baby. He's all caps.
Yeah, Hoy Park got done dirty, baby. He didn't get a chance. And I really feel like he would have had a little bit of success. He's got a beautiful swing, and it's going to kill me to go see him end up with the Rays in a couple of years and killing the Yankees, because you know that's exactly what's going to happen. A-Man says, Goose Gossage was wild at times, but inspired more confidence than Chapman. I never got to see the Goose, unfortunately. He was a bit before my time, but I've heard that. BB says, you would have liked to have seen Park playing a game. He got one at bat, he swung at the first pitch, and the Yankees put his ass on the bench for 3 days, and then they outrighted him. Totally unfair. Paulie Pastafazul, love that name, by the way. Let's get an air horn for that. Paulie Pastafazul says that Paul O'Neill should be the hitting coach. And Paul O'Neill, he's got a lot of great insight, but it's hard to be the hitting coach from Studio 21, and he does not want to leave Studio 21. It's obvious. I don't know if maybe he has some health issues that he doesn't want to, leave and expose himself or whatever. I know that he likes being at home with Nelly. He talks about that all the time. He loves that woman. They're high school sweethearts. And if I'm Paul O'Neill, I've already made all the money in the world, and I don't have to leave my house. Hey, why bother? It's easier to coach. He could just as easily maybe give these guys some tips. Be like, hey, Glaber, do this, do that. So it is what it is. All right, guys. I'm going to call it a night. I appreciate it. I'm going to go watch Ted Lasso Season 2 with my wife. I will see everybody for a watch party tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Yankees, Red Sox. Yankees go for the split. I'll see you next time.